the battery tender Global Mazda MX-5 eSeries, brought to you by Mazda and by Rick Motec Racing Simulators.
We've seen a lot over 150 years. That doesn't mean we've seen it all.
Three different pole sitters, three different winners. This season has been a thrill, and we're already closing in towards the end. Welcome to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. It's located in Lexington, Ohio, and it hosts the fourth and penultimate round of the Battery Tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup eSeries. Welcome along whether you're watching us on a multitude of platforms. That could be on Mazda Motorsports Facebook page, YouTube, or even the Rev TV Motorsports Network in Canada. I'm alongside Mo Murray, of course, from Mazda Motorsports. Mo, it's great to see your lovely face on stream for the first time.
Well, I'll let that be a judgment call. Thanks for having us back here, Mid-Ohio. What a great racetrack. We race here in real life, and every year when we come to Mid-Ohio, this track throws up an unusual result. It's usually in the middle of the season. In 2019, Drake Kemper and Celine Roland had a very good early season, scored a lot of points, came in here and practically gave it all away. Celine was able to recover and be a championship contender. Drake had a terrible weekend here and never really recovered. And a young man by the name of Robert Noacre got his first win of the season last year. But remember, in 18, he also won here at Mid-Ohio as a 14-year-old. He's in the Guinness Book of Records as the youngest winner of an IndyCar sanctioned event. At 14 years of age, he won here in 18. He won again in 19. So as it is in the real world, I think Mid-Ohio is going to throw up an unusual result here and maybe mess up the championship structure that we've seen with Cressian, Lockwood, and Celine Roland.
Certainly could. The championship could actually be wrapped up. It's the penultimate round of the season so far. So this is where it's unlikely to happen, but mathematically it could. And that's something that we'll keep track on for the rest of the broadcast today. We've also got Tony Laporta, our regular series commentator, alongside us. Tom Long as well, a test and development driver for the Global Mazda MX-5 Cup car. We're going to preview this round of Mid-Ohio. I was about to say Road America there, Tom Long, but here we head to a circuit that includes corners such as Madness, and the lap is Madness around here. I thought that was a live thing.
And welcome to the famous Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. 2.25 miles in length, 13 turns, plenty of elevation and undulations to challenge these drivers tonight. It is a beauty. Here we come down the front straightaway into a very blind and challenging turn one under the bridge. As we turn in at a very high rate of speed, using a little bit of curb to help keep the car to rotate, it's an uphill exit. That's climb up to the keyhole, one of the best passing opportunities on the circuit. Challenging as the road drops away from us, and then we try to really focus on a good exit. Onto the back straightaway is key. The back straight is not exactly straight, as we have a slight curve in the bend to the start line that we'll see for tonight into the best passing zone on the track. Outside of the circuit, it's known as China Beach, a very, very big sand trap. We try to focus down the hill into turn 4, now into one of the best spectating places on the circuit, Madness. And you can see from all the changes in direction and elevation, it is quite challenging. Under the bridge, another blind section of road as we come up over the crest into Thunder Valley. Getting the car set, very tricky here as the car is on edge over another blind crest, using all the road through Thunder Valley, and now we get set up for a very challenging off-camber left-hand corner into the carousel. got to get the carousel right. Very tricky, similar to the keyhole. Got to be patient in the middle of the corner to get a good exit back onto the front straightaway. As you can see, there's barely time to breathe here. It is a very, very busy lap around this beautiful Mid-Ohio sports car course.
And pace lap time here around what is a phenomenal racetrack of Mid-Ohio. It always produces some spectacular racing and some good action for the drivers too. Now, we talked about 3 different pole sitters for our campaign. For the first time, we have a repeat pole sitter, Tony Laporta. It's going to be Brian Lockwood on pole position for 6 sideways.
Yeah, that's a really impressive run by him in qualifying, which obviously just wrapped up. Something else really cool and really fun about this virtual iRacing is you qualify and you go straight to the race. Stephen McAleer, who's been right up in the front during all of these iRacing events, is near the front once again, starting on the off-pole position. And Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, Johnny, I always feel guilty telling you about how great all these American road courses are that we're going to in the virtual world, that guys like Mo and Tom and I have been to in the real world as a part of the Battery Tender Global MX5 Cup. But man, Mid-Ohio is a super fun track. What's funny about it is it feels like a little bit of a shorter road course compared to the places we've been, like Road America, for example, last week. But as Mo alluded to a little bit earlier, you know, this is a racetrack that always produces some really unique finishes, odd results, and some dark horses can come out of the woodwork here. So as the field stacks up 2 by 2, I'm looking forward to the virtual thing just as much as I look forward to the real thing. I think it's going to be a really exciting race once we get going.
And it's Robbie Unser in the Mazda pace car that's being driven at the moment by Race Control. They're going to begin the race on the back straight, just like we do in the real world. It's much longer compared to the start-finish straight. Here he pulls out the racetrack, ready for Brian Lockwood to lead this field away into what's going to be turn 4 on the racetrack. We're about to go green for 40 minutes of action, and Lockwood floors it. Round number 4 is underway.
Yeah, Brian Lockwood gets away. A good early jump right there. McAleer dives down to the inside as he's going to defend. It's a long arcing back straightaway here at Mid-Ohio, and you dive into turn number 3 before you enter this really undulating and elevated part of the track. The S's, they roll through Thunder Valley right here, and that looks like Gresham Wagner making a little bit of ground up here on the start. He slots into second position. That's going to leave McAleer on the dirty side of the racetrack back in third. Aaron Johnson is in fourth. Patrick Gallagher, Matt Cresci gets up around Gallagher as they continue to sort themselves out here on the opening lap. It looks like Brian Lockwood makes the absolute most of that pole position starting spot, and they're 2 by 2, quite a few rows back as they make their way around. And then you end the lap here at Mid-Ohio coming to the traditional start-finish line through a really tight right-left complex of corners. You unwind here through the second to last turn, and then it's a quick snap of the wrist into the left-hander, and we're already 1 lap into this thing, Johnny. Oh, a little bit of contact, cars getting together, coming out of the final corner.
Patrick Gallagher and Celine Roland got together, and there's one other car there, the number 30 car of, I can't see who that is. It looked like Gallagher got a little loose coming through that complex, and Celine Roland had no place to go. Here we'll watch a replay. You can see as they get into the long right-hander here before the last turn. Gallagher in Cresci's wheel tracks. He gets a little sideways, overcorrects, catches Celine, and both of them head for the wall. And not a good day for Celine Roland, who is a championship contender. He's now got to fight his way back to the front of the field.
And we see this on the replay, you know, still tires are cold, coming up to temperature. Those BF Goodrich tires take a little bit of time, especially on this Mid-Ohio surface. It's a very, very polished, slick surface, so it actually takes more time for the aggregate to heat the tire up, and it just looks like it got a little bit crossed up, and unfortunately Celine was just an innocent bystander at that point.
Now that incident is critical for the championship because Celine Roland came into this round in second position, 64 points to his name. He was 12 points behind Matt Cresci, who's currently in fifth. We know Michael Carter, Brian Lockwood closely follow, along with Harry Boyd. So the championship will, at the moment, still go down to the final round. But that incident for Roland is one that he'll be lamenting, TLP. It's one that he came in last round with a race victory at Road America. Not a good time to kick off proceedings here at Mid-Ohio.
No, absolutely not. And I don't remember if it was during Mo's opening bit or during the pre-race production meeting we were all having. But Mid Ohio has not been the greatest track or location for Roland. His six sideways teammate Drake Kemper has also struggled here, coming in with a strong position in the championship standing in the real Battery Tender Global MX5 Cup. So the fact that Trouble jumps out and bites Celine here early, I don't want to say it's surprising, because it is a little surprising, but I guess it's not unheard of for Trouble to jump out and get one of the drivers that's a championship favorite very early on here at Mid Ohio.
But the thing, Tony, is if you're going to have trouble and try to work your way back from the back of the field, then you want to have it on the first lap. To have something like this later in the race, takes away the time that you have to recover. We know Celine is capable of driving from the back of the field to the front, as he did at COTA last year, and he's done on several other occasions. Can he get all the way back to the front? I don't know. That's a tall order around this racetrack. It doesn't have a lot of passing points. I think Tom Long could weigh in and tell us where the best passing points would be. But certainly that first lap, opening lap, will have big championship implications.
Yeah, you're right, Mo. I mean, certainly Mid-Ohio is such a challenge for these drivers. All the undulations, dips, dives, lefts, rights. It's a tough place to pass. It's into turn 2 and down the back straightaway. So if Celine can make it back up to the front, he's got a long night ahead of him here. Hopefully he can start to make some progress pushing forward. Hard to say, though, how much damage the car has, what the handling characteristics might be from having contact with the car and the wall.
Well, and Tom, I want to see if you can speak as oh man, one of the cones gets in the action here a little bit as Lockwood slid wide on the exit of that very fast and very flat left-hander that is turn number 1. They make their way through the keyhole. Gresham Wagner doing a really good job under braking, it looks like, of reeling in race leader Brian Lockwood. There we go, on board with the virtual Gresham Wagner. Interesting note, the virtual Gresham Wagner is actually 2 inches shorter than the real-life Gresham Wagner. Not a lot of people know that, but the pack makes their way down the back straightaway into turn number 3. Tom, Mid-Ohio, you mentioned it already during the opening lap. It's very unique surface, and if I remember correctly, I read the pre-race notes that were sent out to all the drivers and competitors, and they talked about how Mid-Ohio is just very slick. The real-life Mid-Ohio is pretty slick as well. Also very difficult to set a car up for when you come here, isn't it?
It certainly is, otherwise known as sometimes a skating rink in the rain. Luckily, it's not raining today, but it can produce some very, very tricky conditions. It's got a sealer in most of the corners that preserve the pavement, but yet it's really hard to get heat in the tire and really get the car to work. So we will see, probably more than any other round this series, Mid-Ohio to produce lap times late in the race.
We're watching Ollie Jarvis, one of Mazda's prototype drivers in the IMSA WeatherTech series. He has had a bit of a tough time with this MX5 Cup series since he joined, and he's back in about. Jarvis is back fighting in 17th place there, racing with Cugliari and several other drivers. Harry Tinknell, one of the other drivers from the Mazda DPI program, has earned himself a drive-through penalty for an incident on the first or second lap. And the third of those Mazda DPI drivers who has joined us, Tristan Nunez, is up to P11. He's passed 4 cars since the start of the race. He made great progress at Road America, you'll recall, before unfortunately getting tapped at the rear end and make heavy contact with the wall. And that put him out of the race. So let's see if Tristan can fight his way up to the front. Incidentally, those 3 drivers, while they are gathering points and will be counted in the results, they're not eligible for championship prizes or points. And so they're listed off of the championship points tally, if you will.
I'll tell you what, something Mazda Motorsports DPI drivers must not like is cones, because the sole red number 77 of Oliver Jarvis came off of turn 1 this lap and absolutely cleaned out about 2 or 3 more of the cones that protect drivers from going into the runoff area on that exit of turn 1. And he cleaned him out. We're watching a really good battle right now with the number 74 at Tyler Max, and he's trying to keep Harry Voigt behind him. This is the fight for 6th position, and just like always in MX5 Cup racing, what was a 1 or 2 car pack has turned quickly into a much larger train of cars. 4 cars right now. Tyler Max and Harry Voigt, Michael Carter, and Glenn McGee saw the steering wheel as they exit corners 12 and 13 and make the run down the front straightaway. And then this corner number 1, Tom, super fast, super flat. Everybody's struggling already early on in this race to keep the back end underneath them. You can see the left front just hop up a little bit right there on Harry Voigt. A little bit of dust getting kicked up, but they're digging for it already as Voigt closes right up. Man, we get to see a suspension on that shot. How about the camera operators here on iRacing? They are something else.
That's what a bump draft looks like.
the ride heights there, or the sensor on the rear end, would have shown minus numbers. That's how close it got to the front end as we watch the leaders here. Now, this is important. Arajon Son, this would be the best performance of the season. His previous best, a P8 in earlier rounds. Have a look at this for the down the back of the pack. So Maxon versus Voigt. This is a battle for P6 heading into turn 4. The best overtaking spot you've got here at Mid-Ohio. And I think Harry Voigt's got it done. Now, Tyler Maxon could be rounded twice here around the outside because the 08 of Michael Carter, who, don't forget, Tony Laporta, is looking for the championship in these final few rounds, could be sealing this move heading through Madness.
Absolutely. Carter has got a lot of action going on in front of him right now, and with championship implications on the line, he has to be smart also. And it's funny, not that MX5 Cup racers aren't smart, it's not that they're always thinking. There's a great shot right there of Tyler Maxon working in his rig right now, but it's more that Carter's got to be wary. He's got to be just cautious around these guys right now, because if he can clear Maxon, if he can clear Voigt, even if it takes him a little bit longer, he knows that Celine Roland is already in trouble in this race after that lap 1 incident. So yeah, it's a great point to bring up, Johnny. Michael Carter's got to be smart. He's got to do what he's got to do to get through this race cleanly and finish as high as possible. He can't risk getting involved in anything with Maxon or Voigt.
You just got a brilliant look at our new feature here. We're going to show different drivers on board. Whoever's got a camera available to us, we'll have there at the bottom of the screen for you in the broadcast. The battles continue down the back end of the order, Mo Murray. And so far, the drivers are, apart from the start here, Mo, it seems to be a clean event. What we get to see from the driver's point of view there, from the onboard cameras in real life, is how hard they actually work the wheel. And Tyler Maxon looked quite active there driving in the sim.
And these cameras where we can actually see the drivers sitting wherever they are in their Rikmatech sims or their various sim equipment. It's fascinating to watch how this all works. For those of you watching at home, you saw the image of Tyler down the bottom of the screen, and you thought to yourself, wow, the camera makes him look young. Don't adjust your set. He's 15 years of age. There he is right there. Ted Saley joining him. These are great camera views. I love to see the guys all wearing their team gear. That's very professional of them. And what we're finding as iRacing and sim racing in general has really sort of caught everybody's imagination during this hiatus in live racing, brought on unfortunately by this current pandemic situation. What we're finding is people are really getting committed and investing in proper sim setups. Companies like Rikmatech provide the whole thing, the chassis, the wheels, the pedals, a full solution or bits and pieces of it, and you can build your own solution. And we're finding teams and drivers taking this very seriously. Unfortunately, we also have other areas of the world where maybe drivers are not taking it as seriously as they should, and we've had a couple of very high-profile incidents where drivers, not in this series, drivers have perhaps not taken it as seriously as their sponsors and their teams would have liked, and there's been some very severe real-world consequences of poor behavior in sim racing. Not poor performance, but poor behavior in the sim racing world. Harry Tincknell told me after the third race that this series, he does a lot of sim racing, this series is the most respectful and well run that he has competed in, and it's a great testament to the folks at Anderson Promotions who put this series on, and the folks at Rikmatech and Apex who produce it, and of course to all these drivers and their teams who approach this with a level of seriousness that is commendable, I think.
Well, certainly, Mo. I tell you, this racing is really heating up. The leaders are getting closer nose to tail, and we saw a phenomenal battle side by side through several corners. Tristan Nunez and Justin Piscatel there just kept it clean all the way down the back straightaway through Madness and into Thunder Valley.
watching Stephen McAleer right now as he's slowly starting to work on trying to reel in Gresham Wagner in that red, white, and black car in second place. Wagner flat tracking it through turn number 1 as he tries to reel in early race leader and pole sitter Brian Lockwood, who's trying to become a repeat winner here in the series. They make their way up the hill towards the keyhole, the right-hander, turn number 2. It's a long, sweeping 180-degree hairpin that falls away from you down the track, and then it's that long run down the back straightaway. Lockwood currently out in front, Wagner in second, McAleer, Johnson, and Kresge the top 5 as you see them all start to snake down the back straightaway. Good look right there, and then it's a ways back to Harry Voigt, Tyler Maxson, Michael Carter, Glenn McGee, and Tristan Nunez, the bottom half of the top 10 here at Mid-Ohio.
And Tony, these first 5 drivers, they're all names we're pretty familiar with because we've seen them week in and week out, except for one, that 4th place car in the number 37, Aaron Johnson. Aaron is a young driver. He's from the Deep South, and a few years ago he won the Team USA shootout, the system that selects from the very best young drivers around the country and picks 2 of them and sends them to the UK. Oops, he just had a problem. And sends 2 of them to the UK to compete in Formula Ford races, the Formula Ford Festival, and the Walter Hayes Trophy in the UK. He won that, acquitted himself very well over in the UK, came back, struggled to put a budget together to go real racing, and switched to looking at sedan or sports car racing. And last year went to the Mazda Club Racer Shootout, another of these Mazda scholarship programs where Mazda selects 6 of the best young drivers from the grassroots racing community and pits them against each other for a one-day shootout in these cars, in MX-5 Cup cars. And Aaron was a very, very, very competitive, very close second in that shootout to a young man named Jared Thomas, who we're looking forward to seeing when we get back to real racing. But Aaron is somebody to watch for sure. He's a very, very talented young man.
Yeah, absolutely, Mo. Jeremy Shaw, the leader and the founder of the Team USA Scholarship. That's a program that I advise anyone watching this broadcast to go look into, especially if you're an aspiring race car driver. It's a program that is literally designed to help young drivers like Aaron, as Mo explained, reach their potential. Jeremy does a fantastic thing. He even brings the litter of potential candidates as we see somebody poking out, trying to take a look at a pass for position. Oh, a little bit of contact gets made right there. Is that Maxson? Yes, yeah, it is. Tyler Maxson gets bumped up and moved out of the way. Was that Glenn McGee, Johnny, that got into the back of him?
Well, it was difficult to see. I only caught the end of it, but it definitely looked like Maxson was turned around. We can confirm that, but we'll wait and see as to what happened to the others. Here's a replay on screen. So there's Maxson, and right behind him.
Oh, boy.
Yep.
That's Carter, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Michael Carter. I think wasn't intentional at all, but certainly looked to pull out to pass, got back to the brakes, but by that point, it was just too late on the brakes, and then he seems like he got moved out of the way or slid wide as we come down through the bottom of Madness.
Tom, it almost looks like Maxson got on the brakes early for some reason. Do you agree? I think this is another look at it.
Yeah, and that's one aspect that we have been talking with these drivers in their post-race interviews, and they are talking about getting to the brakes at the right point. It's very hard to anticipate the competitor ahead as they run so close in this battery tender Global MX-5 Cup Series. It's hard to anticipate when the car ahead is going to be on the brakes, and there you see just the slightest of contact, how close these cars are and how far they are on edge. Just the slightest of touch sends them off the road.
Wow, that's, yeah, for Michael Carter to be the guy delivering the bumper in that situation, you have to imagine it's far from intentional. Maxson, of course, driving for Copeland, a team that I get accused of not giving enough love to. So let's make sure everyone knows that Tyler Maxson in that Copeland entry was running very well and had an unfortunate incident with Michael Carter, but you can be sure that the Copeland driver won't be back there for too long as he'll make his way back up to the front. But just to finish my point, wow, Gresham Wagner is all over Brian Lockwood here. This is a great 3-car race for the lead. Team USA, Aaron Johnson, the young man from Louisiana. What Jeremy Shaw and that program do is something fantastic. They bring the crop of young drivers who get interviewed for the 2 spots. He actually brings them here to Mid-Ohio on the IndyCar race weekend. The drivers get to spend time in an IndyCar team transporter on the timing stand of an IndyCar team through Jeremy's connections. And so it's a really cool deal. And to see Aaron spill over from the open wheel side, as Mo talked about, over here to the Global MX-5 Cup is something very exciting.
And-
But Brian Lockwood's got enough excitement on his hands right now, Mo, because he's got Gresham Wagner and Mackler breathing down his neck.
And you know who else won that Team USA opportunity many, many years ago? The man in 8th place won, Tristan Nunez. He went over there. He did very well. I believe he won the Walter Hayes Trophy in a Formula Ford car. And the night, this was in 2012, and the night that he won that race in England, he got a phone call from then director of Mazda Motorsports, John Doonan, who said, "Hey, how would you like to be a Mazda driver?" And he's been a Mazda driver ever since late 2012. And he's the other driver in the field who benefited from that Team USA scholarship. Michael Carter, very talented. Unfortunate to see him make a mistake. He's dropped down the order a little bit. He's now behind Nunez in 9th. He's racing for Carter Racing Enterprises, a new team that him and his dad have created to basically put him on the tour this year, on the MX-5 Cup tour when we get going in the Battery Tender Series. Came in last year as the Rookie of the Year. He won that Mazda scholarship. Came in as the Rookie of the Year, or won Rookie of the Year, and unfortunately now has earned himself a drive-through penalty because of that incident with Tyler Maxson.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting, Mo. I was concerned. I know if I was driving there, I'd be thinking, oh, I hope I don't get that drive-through penalty for that mistake. And this is going to put him to the back because he'll drive through pit lane. It's going to be interesting because he is always running so close with Celine Roland in this championship. How he will be able to recover, where this puts him relative to Celine in the points, and where he is physically on the track.
Well, I think with just one round left, and Celine has not been able to climb back up the order, and this is going to take Michael Carter down the order. Brian Lockwood is going to have a very good day. Matt Cresci's currently running 4th. I think if the race were to finish right now, I think Cresci would still come out of here with a points lead, but it would be a smaller points lead than he came in here with. And really, I think the championship, Harry Voigt, also not one to be counted out. He's in 6th place at the moment. So you were right at the opening, Johnny. You said we didn't think it was mathematically possible for Cresci to win the title here, but we didn't think it was going to happen, and that's exactly what's transpired here. It's very unlikely that anybody's going to win the championship today, which means we'll go on next week to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, another fantastic racetrack, and these guys will all do it again. But right now, we're just a little over halfway through this race. Lockwood, he will pick up, if he keeps leading the race, he's going to pick up 1 extra point for leading the most laps, but he's under a lot of pressure from Gresham Wagner and wily old veteran Stephen Mackler.
Yeah, and so these are your top 3 who are battling away for that elusive race win. They'll win $110 if they can do it. It's between Brian Lockwood, Gresham Wagner, and Stephen McAleer. These 3 have been some of the strongest in the MX-5 on the simulation racing side of the Global Mazda MX-5 Cup eSeries. We're also presented by BF Goodrich and Rick Motec Racing Simulators, so check them out where you can at their associated platforms. We know Lockwood's pushing his absolute hardest as he heads through turn number 1 past the keyhole. Now we look through to the back of the pack here. Celine Roland trying to make amends for the incident at the start of the race. The car looks very clean though, TLP.
Yeah, it does. It's a wonder as we check in with Jaime Gabaldoni, one of the drivers who made an appearance last season in the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup, I believe at Laguna Seca. It does a good job of getting out of the way of some faster traffic. But yeah, Celine Roland, the Celine crew must have done a lot of work to buff out all the dents and scratches in that car, because Roland's all the way back up to 24th now. He's got Patrick Gallagher in front of him, and I don't think you can count Roland. I don't think it's impossible to see him get a top 10 finisher. I think he is still within his means.
And Tony, while we're on it, let's talk about Jaime Gabaldoni. He's our racing journalist. He has a blog. He's the automotive editor for Univision and Telemundo, and he has his own show called A Bordeaux. Well, I've forgotten the name of it now. But he came out last year. We trained him. Brian Ortiz, our series champion, put him through several days of training, and he came out and raced at Laguna Seca. And his goal was to say that he was a real race car driver, and we were able to fulfill that dream for him.
Well, who's going to fulfill the dream of Victor this afternoon? Still Brian Lockwood leading from Gresham Wagner and Stephen McAleer. It looks like it's going to be between these 3 for the second half of the race. Let's see how they fare. Keep with us. More racing action to come from Mid-Ohio.
These days, the events we love will have to wait. Not forever, just for now. But as an essential service, we're open and ready to help, especially healthcare heroes. We'll do an enhanced cleaning of your car inside and out, and change the oil for free, even if you don't drive a Mazda. It's the least we can do.
Everybody yearns for something. Few have the drive to reach out and take it. We build for those with the conviction to stand up straight and demand what they want out of life. We champion those who refuse to see the world as it is, but what it could be. We know what we're building for. What are you building for?
And back at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for round number 4 of the Battery Tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup E-Series, presented by BF Goodrich and Rick Motec Racing Systems. Now, we welcome you back to the coverage. You could be watching on the Mazda Motorsports Facebook page, even the Apex Racing TV YouTube page, or even the Rev TV Motorsports Network if you're from Canada. We welcome you back to the coverage. It's been a good race so far with Brian Lockwood leading every lap so far from pole position ahead of Gresham Wagner and Stephen McAleer. So there was an incident in the opening laps that claimed victims, including Celine Roland and Championship Challenger, don't forget, as well down the back of the order. Some other Championship Challengers down the back end of the field. So with this being the penultimate round, these are important points to be had. Lockwood still in contention for the championship. Wagner's got a long way to go. Stephen McAleer is essentially out of it mathematically. TLP, we're coming down to a race here where Lockwood can't afford to give up first place. These are 30 important points that he needs for that title, and he could be $1,500 richer if he claims it next week.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Johnny, and it's silly, but there's no position in MX-5 Cup racing, virtual or otherwise, that any driver really wants to give up or can afford to, for that matter. And Lockwood is the epitome of what you're talking about right now. He's going to fight and do everything he can. We've talked about it multiple times, I feel like, every weekend of this E-Series, and it remains the same at Mid-Ohio or anywhere else we go. Leading is rarely the place you want to be at any point of an MX-5 Cup race, unless it's the point where you're crossing the finish line. But as we wear towards the end of this thing, it looks like about 12, 13 minutes still to go, you know, you're going to see Lockwood really get challenged here. Gresham Wagner, super smart, super patient driver. Same for McAleer. That guy, ton of seat time, ton of race hours across the board in all kinds of different series. He's somebody that can really put together a late race push. Mac Cressy, Aaron Johnson, your top 5. Really anybody in that top 5, heck, even the top 10, if they do their work, draft up to the front 5, is capable of winning this race. There's Harry Voigt right there with Glenn McGee right behind him. Tristan Nunez having his best showing of the series. Justin Piscatell and Robillard round out your top 10. So, yeah, Lockwood is in the hot seat, but heck, any position on this track except dead last when there's no one to pass you, everybody's in the hot seat in MX-5 Cup racing. So it's going to be very interesting when we get inside those. Oh, a little bit of argy-bargy there, Mo, as Calvin Fisk would say. That's Piscatell.
That's
the number
Piscatell,
9.
who was in a tight race with Tristan Nunez. I'm not sure where Nunez ended up.
Oh, no.
Whether that will draw a penalty or not. It may have been self-inflicted with Piscatell, but we don't know. Hopefully we'll get a replay. Here we go.
Let's see. Did hair gel get in Nunez's eyes? Let's see. Piscatell pulls out along the inside, going down the back straightaway. Nunez hangs tough on the outside. And I think, I was going to say Piscatell overcooked it, Tom, but I think there was a little bit of contact there. I think Piscatell got some help.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looked like that. Tristan Nunez with the over-under move and just missed the timing by an inch, and that just kind of paved the way for Jackson Robillard to move up into 8th place. Jackson having his best run of the series so far. Exciting for him, but I'm afraid that Tristan's probably looking at the clock saying, okay, I might be ready for race control to tell me
Well,
otherwise.
Tom, you not only are you a very accomplished racer and car developer, but you've spent a lot of time in race control, stewarding events just like this. As you were talking about Tristan, the notice popped up on our screen that the incident is under review. So we'll wait and see what our race director decides, whether Nunez has earned himself a penalty or not. Johnny, we talked at the opening of this about a championship point situation. Now, I'm counting on my fingers and my toes here, so I wouldn't take this to the bank. But if the race finishes as it lies right now, my best calculation is that Cressy will end up with 95 points, and Brian Lockwood will have 88 points. So that would be a 7-point difference going into the last round. If the race were to end as it is now, and of course we know with 10 minutes left in this race, there's a lot can happen.
And how about that, Tom Long? Laguna Seca for the final round as we watch a nice scrap here down the mid-pack between Nunez and Jackson Robillard coming through towards the end of the lap and through the S's. We've also got the 61 of Andrew List there into the scrap too. But talk about Laguna Seca next week, Tom. It's a track where it was actually the first circuit I ever watched MX5 racing, believe it or not. Fun fact for you. Not in the real world, but over the internet when I watched the real life racing.
Phenomenal. Yeah, WeatherTech Laguna Seca is very similar to Mid-Ohio in a lot of ways, mostly very, very slick pavement. So you have a very sandy surface. Here you have this sealer, so the cars move around, slide around quite a bit. So if you are hooked up at Mid-Ohio, chances are you've got a very good shot of doing well at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca.
And as we look back from Robillard's car to Tristan Nunez. Tristan, as I mentioned, has been a Mazda racer since he was 15 or 16 years old. And so we've gotten to know his family very well. And I am reliably told his mom, Diane, is tuned into the broadcast and is very active in the comments section, making sure that her golden boy, our golden boy, we all love Tristan, can get to the finish here and get a result that will do him and his mom proud.
And here you can see this side-by-side racing. Tristan's been in a lot of good scraps tonight. First off with Justin Piscatel and now with Jackson here, running side-by-side, very clean. I know that whatever comes of race control's call, it was not an intentional move, just trying to create that over-under effect at the end of the back straightaway. As they go into the carousel, it's going to be tight. It will become single file by the time they get through this right-hander.
And Andrew List is there to pick up the pieces if these guys don't make it through this last complex on the racetrack as they head up the front straightaway. Andrew List is going to get a big tow now from two cars running up under the bridge into turn one.
It's going to be Nunez down there on the inside, wheel to wheel with Robillard as they roll through. And it looks like there's the official bulletin. Penalty for car number 44, incident responsibilities. So Mo Nunez is going to take what was a really strong showing and unfortunately take it right down pit lane as he'll have to serve a penalty.
And there may be no dinner for him tonight.
You hate to see that, but Robillard, whether he knows it or not, has got a free position in front of him waiting to grab it, so he's going to hold station right there in what will be 9th. He'll turn into 8th once Nunez hits pit lane. Andrew List and Tyler Maxson. See, Maxson, I told you, the driver from Copeland didn't stay down for very long. He's already fighting to get back in the top 10 as he and Andrew List dice it out down into the turn number 3. Boy, List holds strong on the outside, which turns into the inside. And List is going to show Maxson the bumper. Oh, this is good racing right here, as this is to fight to get into the top 10. But as we said, once Nunez hits pit lane to serve his penalty, this will become 10th position that we're watching right now. And it just goes to show you that no matter where you look in an MX5 Cup field, late in a race, Johnny, the racing is always very exciting inside of 10 minutes to go here.
Yeah, most certainly. So we got a few laps to go here at Mid-Ohio. It's about a 1:38 lap, so we should get, most certainly a few more in as Tyler Maxson tries to make amends for being taken out by Michael Carter earlier. Whether or not he broke earlier is an argument to be had later on, but Carter was found guilty of that, as we know. Served a drive-through penalty to go with it. We're not expecting any scheduled pit stops. Yes, Mo?
Johnny, as I'm watching this great camera angle we get now to see the drivers in their sims as they participate in the race, you're our sim racing expert on the panel here. I see everybody, or at least all the cameras we visited, are using a triple screen setup. Does anybody, in your experience, does anybody use a VR setup to compete like this, or is triple screen sort of the way to go?
It depends what you need. There are some drivers who do favor VR, but I think the quickest drivers found triple screens is just easier on your eyes. It's a lot easier in terms of fatigue as well, as we watch some bump drafting in the braking zone here down the bottom end of the top 10. There's drivers who run triple screens. I still run single screens and a $300 wheel I bought 10 years ago. You know, it depends how much money you can spend on this stuff. You know, I'm a guy who I don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars in sim racing. And I think I've proven as well over the years, Mo. I mean, I've set world records and been one of the top drivers in the world of basic equipment. But if you want to fork out all the money and do all this stuff, then you might as well go for it.
And there's lots of opportunities. I know. Tristan Nunez has spent the last probably 6 weeks investing in building his sim rig. I know Ollie Jarvis, who's back there in 21st position. He's just invested heavily in his sim rig. We see Tyler Maxson popping up here. We can see what he's working with and how he's man, the concentration is absolutely complete. At the opening of this series, we thought, wouldn't it be fun to talk to the drivers during the race? But there's really no way that can happen. They are fully vested in the concentration that it takes to race these things.
You know, Mo, it's funny you bring that up in race interview. I was communicating with Sarah Montgomery today, who is racing for the first time this eSeries in the championship. She's our only female driver in the field this evening, and I told Sarah, I said, you know, I'm glad you're racing because A, it's going to be a lot of fun, and B, I'm going to call your cell phone in the middle of the race, and you're going to give us a live in-race interview. And she said, bring it on. So I don't know if we should try it or not. I can dial her up, but the interesting thing was that Sarah guaranteed me a podium finish, probably even a win before the race happened today. That's I'm making that up. She wasn't that brash. She said she was just hoping to have fun and to enjoy the race with everybody. But you know, we can try to call her up. I got a few anytime minutes left if you think we should go for an in-race interview.
I don't think she's out there on the racetrack, TLP. I think she might be out of the race so far, so that might.
You know what? I don't doubt it,
A
Johnny.
cup of coffee.
I don't doubt it, because I think I saw her tune in to the Facebook feed also, and I was about to comment, how can you be watching this? You should be focusing on what's in front of you right now as we watch Celine Roland continue to work his way through the pack. Celine's up to 16th, it says right now, on the timing and scoring monitor. And I'll tell you what, no matter where he finishes, you guys, this is going to be a rally for the eSeries ages. He's done a really good job on a place that's pretty difficult to make passes around, I think.
And before we leave, talking about Sarah, unfortunately she's out of this race, but let's give her a shout out. She's a fantastic young woman who adds a lot to the Real Battery Tender Series. She scored 4 podium finishes at the end of 2019. The last 4 races, she put her car in 3rd place. She races in the ND1 class, which is for the MX-5 Cup cars built off the 16, 17, and 18 model year cars, which have slightly less horsepower than the 19 and 20 model year cars. But nevertheless, she was up against some very stiff competition. Her team owner, John Dean, who's a superstar in these cars, Nathaniel Sparks, and several other drivers committed to the ND1 class. And towards the end of the year, Sarah was able to get herself 4 different podium finishes in that class, and I'm delighted she was able to come out and join us tonight for this race. It's unfortunate for that she wasn't able to finish the race, but I'm sure she'll be back, and she's a welcome addition to MX-5 Cup racing, whether it's in the real world or here in sim racing.
So it looks like inside of 3 laps to go now as we continue to watch Celine Roland, and then right behind him, that's going to be Patrick Gallagher on the number 29, who was also caught up in that lap 1 final corner incident that affected Roland so negatively. Looks like we've had a change for position up at the front end of the field. That's the matching McCumbee McAleer Racing paint scheme to Patrick Gallagher, but it's the co-owner of that team, Stephen McAleer, who now shows the way in second position to Gresham Wagner in that red, black, and white Global MX-5 Cup car. And while we didn't see the pass for position happen, it looks like it may have taken a little while, or a few corners at least, to execute, because you can see the giant lead MX5 Cup standards, that is, that Brian Lockwood now enjoys, as we should be coming down to see 2 to go, or maybe we're already in 2 to go. But Lockwood now out in front by, again, an MX5 Cup standards, a country mile. Gresham Wagner, on the other hand, not giving up on the fight. He knows every point and every position is worth the fight. Let's see here as we watch the battle for second place as they come down the back straightaway. Let's see when McAleer makes his move at the end of the corner. Right there under braking. Masterful job. So I was completely wrong. It didn't take a long time at all. It just killed the momentum that those two had built up. Lockwood was able to pull away. So now Lockwood's still your leader. It's going to be McAleer in second and Gresham Wagner in third, as Brian Lockwood shows the way here with just a few laps to go.
And if this race were to finish in this order, this would be McAleer's best result of the series. He came in as a strong favorite because he knows these cars very, very well. He raced for many years. He's a team owner. He does a lot of coaching and testing. He really, really understands these MX5 Cup cars. But as you'll recall, the first round in Barber, he ended up getting tangled up in a pretty big accident on the first lap, and so didn't score any points, or very few points coming out of there. He got 1 point, in fact. He got 17 points in COTA and 15 points at Road America. This would be his best result of the season so far, but I do think he's probably a little far back to begin to think about mounting a championship challenge.
So it sounds like, well, it looks like, as we can watch right here, that that fight for second place is not going anywhere. Just got an update from Sarah Montgomery. Sounds like technical difficulties with her internet not being able to keep up down there in the sticks of Louisiana was the culprit for her not being able to finish the race. So it wasn't contact, wasn't a wreck, wasn't anything, just some slow dial-up internet. So we're going to get a GoFundMe going for Sarah Montgomery to get some nice wireless internet so she can be with us in Laguna Seca. But Johnny, just a few corners left to go, and Lockwood's got this thing pretty well handled, it looks like.
He looks like he's going to be our first repeat winner of the series. He was the first repeat pole sitter, and now he's got a couple more corners to go to claim his second victory. He fell to turmoil at Road America, which halted his championship progress. This will be a step in the right direction. You never know how he'll fare come the end of the race. Now, did I see contact down the back of the pack from McAleer and Wagner? We'll keep tune to that. They look clean across the line. Lockwood will officially win round 4, the penultimate round of the Battery Tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup eSeries presented by BF Goodrich. What a race it was between those three all campaign. They couldn't swap positions, could they? For most of the race, it was just pretty much nose to tail. We watched Glenn McGee and Harry Voigt across the line, and here is Andrew List, who will round out the top 10 right behind Tyler Maxson. Harry Tinknell down the back of the pack as well will finish outside the top 10. So we're going to bring up the race results after this. Hope you enjoyed the race so far. We've got post-race show, a lot of interviews coming up, not only with our commentary crew, but with the drivers too. We'll see you after this.
Everybody yearns for something. Few have the drive to reach out and take it. We build for those with the conviction to stand up straight and demand what they want out of life. We champion those who refuse to see the world as it is, but what it could be. We know what we're building for. What are you building for?
These days, the events we love will have to wait. Not forever, just for now. But as an essential service, we're open and ready to help, especially healthcare heroes. We'll do an enhanced cleaning of your car inside and out, and change the oil for free, even if you don't drive a Mazda. It's the least we can do.
And here are your top three, ready to go here at the end of the race, ready for celebrations, although will they celebrate with one round to go? They know there's still work cut out for them, but for Brian Lockwood, it's a step in the right direction. Let's take a look at your final race results for round 4 of the Battery Tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup eSeries presented by BF Goodrich. And it was Brian Lockwood who wins today. Just about over a second from Stephen McAleer, who rounds out the podium along with Gresham Wagner. Matt Cresci, though, that, as we spoke about, was critical for the championship for Cresci. He extends his lead over Roland, but Lockwood closes in on Cresci too. So it's going to be an awesome one come Laguna Seca, down the back end of the pack as well. You see the likes of Pat Gallagher, who just hasn't had the luck on his side. TLP Pat Gallagher down in 17th in this race.
I'll tell you what, I think Patrick Gallagher, he's got one race to go. I'm not sure if he's going to watch the replay of this broadcast, but if he does, this is his official call to action. If he wants to turn his results around, he needs to put that Dale Earnhardt throwback honor the number 3 paint scheme that he has shown me. He needs to put that on the car for Laguna Seca. I think McCumbee McAleer would understand. But if he wants to win, Gallagher needs to do it for Dale when we go to California next week and slap that good wrench number 3 on there. Boy, how about the rebound for Celine Roland? Shows him finishing in 16th position. And it was also, who also had the really good run was Tyler Maxson after getting taken out in contact at the end of the back straightaway in turn 3 with Michael Carter. Boy, Maxson has a really good rebound as well. A really good race, but man, Brian Lockwood, I mean, I hate to say it, Johnny, but he kind of made it boring. He just ran away with this one.
Well, he had 2 drivers behind within the clutches of him, and I think it's a good time to chat to our race winner, Brian Lockwood, for 6 Sideways. Brian, you are the first repeat pole sitter, the first repeat winner. I think this is a good step in the positive direction for you for the championship come Laguna Seca.
Absolutely. I'm just taking this race by race, but we put ourselves in a pretty decent position. I think Matt still has a pretty tough lead that's going to be tough to surmount, but definitely really happy with this result after what happened at Road America.
Brian, this is Mo. Congratulations. Well done. You say Matt has a tough lead. We think, by our calculations, we're waiting for the official calculation to go up. It's only 7 points. So going into next week at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, it's a pretty tight championship battle, and everybody's got to gather up as many bonus points as they can and stay clean for the race. Something that's not so easy around Laguna Seca. How do you feel about it?
Absolutely. Well, I love Laguna Seca. The corkscrew's super fun, and there are a lot of corners on that track that I really like. But 7 points. All Matt has to do is finish second if I win the race. So there's definitely a lot out of my control. I'm just gonna, hopefully have a good showing again like I did today, and we'll see what we can bring.
Well, I love that you have so much confidence in your fellow drivers that you say all Matt has to do is finish second. There are 28 other guys who are going to try and stop him from doing that. They're also going to try and stop you from winning. So best of luck next week. Congratulations, our first 2-time winner, 2-time pole sitter, and you've certainly made this championship more exciting as we head into the final round next week.
Thanks, Mo.
Brian, Tony Laporta here. I don't know if I've seen an MX-5 Cup race in 4 years with the series like this one. You made it boring, my man. You ran away with it. Was it getting tiresome up there at the front? I mean, obviously, you know what's going on behind you. Were you expecting a charge? Were you waiting? Or were you confident you could keep the number 43 where it was?
Oh, that was a really tough race. A lot tougher than it looked. I'll tell you what. Gresham seemed to be able to pressure me in the section after the backstretch. He was consistently right on my bumper through there. And I think I might have had a little pace on him, maybe a tenth or so without draft, but the draft just made it so that I had no room to breathe all race. Anytime I got a little bit of gap, I made a mistake, and he was right there again. So Gresham and Steven definitely kept me honest that race. But yeah, not much of a challenge I had to fend off for me, thankfully. But I doubt that's going to be the same thing happening next week at Laguna Seca.
All right. Well, Brian, we appreciate you stopping and talking to us. We're watching a replay of the race right now. Looks like you were trying to race Robbie Unser, the pace car driver there at the start, but you won the race that mattered. First repeat winner in the series. Congratulations. Thanks for talking to us, my man.
Thanks, Tony.
It's a good time to bring in our second place finisher of Stephen McAleer, who I think, Stephen, as I talked about for a few other drivers, a good step in the right direction for you. You're obviously out of mathematical contention for the championship, but hey, if you take round one out of the equation, I think you fared quite well in this E-Series.
Yeah, I'm obviously enjoying mixing up. 10 years ago I was considered the young one, but not anymore with the boys up front. And yeah, what a good race. Probably boring for you guys, but it certainly wasn't for the three of us. Matt Cressy did a great job in fourth as well. I knew he was just about to lose a draft, which gave me some room to just kind of sit and try and pick my moves. And yeah, fun race for sure.
Steven, Tony Laporta here. I won't make any old guy jokes because you just did it for me. But you talk about being the young guy 10 years ago, and the truth of the matter is you've gotten a lot of experience in MX5 Cup. You've gotten experience all over the place. What do you make of this iRacing stuff? I think you're someone with a lot of invaluable experience across the world in different form of motorsports and different skill levels. COVID-19, the Rona makes us rely on iRacing. So what do you make of all this? Are you enjoying it? Is it worth the hassle? What is it to you?
No, I mean, I'm having a ton of fun here. I might not be able to put as much sim time in as some of these guys. I'm still working, building go-karts or getting race cars prepared for Macombi McAleer racing. So it's certainly challenging. I jump on 20-30 minutes prior to the session, but it's been good. The sim is great. I always tell anybody that's coming into to racing, they talk about sim racing, and really it's such a good learning tool to learn the racetrack. I think there's some stuff that maybe doesn't match up, but learning the racetrack is fantastic. And the draft in these cars works just like it does in real life, and it was nice trying to play a little strategy game with the first two.
Stephen, this is Mo. Congratulations, your best result of this season so far. Certainly somebody who's very familiar with MX5 Cup cars. Tell us a little bit about your sim setup. What are you using with regard to sim? I know you do a lot of coaching with young drivers, but in terms of your sim setup, what are you using?
So that I actually can't disclose. Let's just say it's a nice one and I enjoy being in it. I've got a nice fan in my face and it feels really good.
Good. Well, congratulations and well done. Johnny?
Steve and Tom Long here. One last one for you. Just curious, with all the experience you bring to this racing platform and this series, good to know that one of your proteges that you coach busted into the top 10 with a P8 tonight. So it's got to make you feel good, not only to bring home a good finish for yourself, but to know that the guys that help with your race team in your race program are aspiring right there with you. Oh yeah, there's no question. I really enjoy seeing everybody representing the Macombi McAleer. We've got Albert Legazic out there. He's getting faster each weekend, and then obviously, the golden child for MMR is Patrick Gallagher. Winning the championship a few years ago. So, we try and get online a couple of days before if the schedule allow, and work on some drafting practice and kind of work out where the areas are going to be best to pass and not to pass. And it's a lot of fun running with those guys, and you always feel you have a little bit more security running with them, maybe with with some of the other guys. Absolutely. Well done tonight. Appreciate it. Thanks, Tom.
And we're going to bring you more of our post-race action here and post-race interviews coming up after this. But we're going to say goodbye first to our Canadian audience from the Rev TV Motorsports Network. And brilliant to have you on board as usual. You can catch more of the action on the Mazda Motorsports Facebook page or even the Apex Racing TV YouTube page itself. But for now, though, more post-race interviews coming up. See you on the other side of this.
These days, the events we love will have to wait. Not forever, just for now. But as an essential service, we're open and ready to help. Especially healthcare heroes. We'll do an enhanced cleaning of your car inside and out, and change the oil for free. even if you don't drive a Mazda. It's the least we can do.
We've seen a lot over 150 years. That doesn't mean we've seen it all.
Welcome back. If you're joining us for the post-race interview action, well, it's not really action, but it's post-race interview time here live from the virtual Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. I'm alongside Mo Murray. We've also got our crew behind the scenes of Tom Long and, of course, regular series commentator Tony Laporta. Mo, we're going to speak to Gresham Wagner in a second, who came home in the third position. Let me tell you something, right? Great race for him, but he would really...
So it sounds like we're working on getting Johnny back. Johnny, you there?
Yeah, I got you. We're here.
We lost your audio there for a second.
Oh,
Gresham Wagner, you were talking about. Gresham, are you with us?
Yes.
So
here.
another good result for you. You've had an up and down season so far. Second place at the opening round, then 0 points in round 2, and then back up 5th place last week, and now back to 2nd place this week. How was your race at Hero Road Mid-Ohio, I should say? And then how do you feel about your championship going into the last round?
Well, I had a pretty, I guess, boring race from the outside, but we were definitely racing hard to, break away from the rest of the group there. And I think that's what we were all trying to do for the first half of the race. It's always good when you're in the top 3 and you see 4th place falling back. So I knew we were going to have a little bit of a battle potentially between us for the win. Steven got me with a couple minutes to go, though, and I couldn't get back past. And that allowed Brian to get away a little bit. So it wasn't quite the finish I was expecting in the last couple minutes. But, a good race nonetheless. And, happy to come home 3rd after a few issues earlier in the season. It's good to get some more points.
So when we do get back to racing in the real world, you race for Spark Performance. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who Spark Performance is? Because that's a relatively new team within this MX5 Cup community.
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone knows Sparky, Nathaniel Sparks. He, I think was champion 2016, and then he's been running Indy 1 for the last couple of years and working with Six Sideways. And so now this year we've teamed up. He's the one that's going to be running the car and doing all the behind-the-scenes stuff to make sure I'm competitive on track and up near the front. So I'm happy to work with him. We were just actually at Mid-Ohio yesterday testing, so it should be a good season. Everything's looking up right now.
And Sparky is a great guy. We're very happy to see him put a team together. Him and his lovely wife Courtney are putting this business together, and they'll build it and with your support in their debut season. Not only is he a former champion, but he also, maybe you didn't know this, but he also was the winner of one of the closest finishes in MX5 Cup history at VIR a few years ago. 5 cars crossed the finish line within 0.15 of a second, and Sparky got the nod that day. So congrats to them on forming the team, and we're looking forward to seeing you and the whole team out on the racetrack soon.
Yeah, for sure. It should be a lot of fun.
PLP?
Gresham, fantastic job, my man. It's funny, Stephen McAleer already mentioned that he thought this race might be boring to those of us watching or the 4 of us calling it, but it sure didn't look boring from your point of view. We get ready to go to Laguna Seca next week. Do you have anything for him once we get out to the West Coast?
Hopefully. I think I should definitely put in a little bit more practice than I did for this race. That's not one of my better tracks. It's definitely fun, challenging. It just takes a little bit to get the hang of for whatever reason. So I'll definitely put in some laps this weekend. And I think I should probably be up near the front, but I'm not sure I'll have quite the pace I did this weekend. But, we'll see what happens. I think it'll be a fun finale. Track brings great racing. So, I'm looking forward to it, and I've had a fun season so far, so I see no reason why it shouldn't stay that way.
I like that attitude. You kind of had me worried there in the middle when you said you weren't sure about getting the feel for Laguna Seca, and I was going to say, Gresham, even if you don't believe in you, I believe in you. But then you wrap it up with you see no reason the fun should stop before we head out to the virtual West Coast. I mentioned during the broadcast that virtual Gresham Wagner, who we're riding on board with right now, is actually 2 inches shorter than real life Gresham Wagner. I hope you don't mind me bringing that up.
I could do it with a few extra inches, but yeah, great race and had a lot of fun.
Well, we're glad you're here racing with us, and good job today. It was a lot of fun to watch you. Best of luck, and we'll see you out on the virtual West Coast in a few days.
Yep, thank you.
Got Matt Cresci lined up next. Matt Cresci just fell short of the podium. But Matt, let me tell you something. Good points for the championship. You technically, I think, extend the lead over Celine Roland, but not over Brian Lockwood. Do you think you're in a good position come Laguna Seca next week?
Yeah, I think it was about as good as it was going to go. I've never been to Mid-Ohio before, so I just wanted to get on the pace. And we're currently having a heat wave out here in California, and my electrical breakers all shut down about 2 hours before the race, so I was scrambling to run extension cords across the house. But we got it working, and I was able to get about 30 minutes of practice in before the race. So Laguna is the home track, and I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun final race of the year.
Matt, when we talked to Brian, we estimate that there'll be about a 7-point gap going into this race, and he said, well, all Matt has to do is finish second, as though that's an easy thing to do. Going into this race, you've got 29 other guys who are going to try and stop you from finishing at the front. It is your home track. How much will that influence your race strategy for the week?
I might not need to practice quite as much because I do have a lot of seat there and I work there as well for racing schools and things. But no doubt, there's going to be guys that haven't done as well in the championship as they would like. So we're going to have some guys really going for it for some podium finishes in the final race. So it'll just be about managing, trying to manage my points over everyone else that's still in it. But I can guarantee it's far from over. It's a very risky braking zone into the corkscrew, so I think we could see a bit of drama there, and it's just going to be about racing clean and trying to keep up with Brian.
Matt, Tony Laporta here. Totally off the wall question, but I remember learning this about you when I came to the Battery Tender Global MX5 Cup, and I always found it really interesting, and especially with the MX5 Cup cars moving to the sequential gearbox later on this season, are you still teaching people how to drive stick shift in the Bay Area?
Well, yes, it's still my part-time business. I do that when I'm not instructing at the track or working down at Laguna. But yeah, it's still a part-time job. Currently shut down for all the COVID-19 stuff. So hopefully I can fire that back up in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're still doing God's work and teaching people how to drive standard transmission cars. That's an art that I hope we don't lose before too long. So congratulations on another great weekend. Laguna Seca is going to be a ton of fun. And just thanks for talking to us, my man.
You bet. Thanks for having me. See you guys next week.
And time to speak to Aaron Janson, who came home in the 5th position. Aaron, this is your best performance of the season. Is it uphill from here? Do we see a podium or even a potential race win next week at Laguna Seca?
I mean, I can only hope so, to be honest. It's been an uphill battle so far this season. Road America is not my favorite track, but I was able to come away with my best finish of the season thus far in 8th. And then I was very confident going into Mid-Ohio because I've been running another series on iRacing that went to Mid-Ohio the week before, so I've had plenty of practice there, and it's one of only 2 tracks that I've driven an MX-5 in real life, so I guess that's where all my confidence came from at Mid-Ohio. But yeah, I'll give it my best at Laguna Seca as well next week, and I've done a lot of laps, at least on the sim there, so we'll see.
Aaron,
Go ahead, Tom.
Aaron, this is Tom Long. Congratulations on the top 5 results tonight. You've been working really hard at this through this time frame, getting further up the grid and in the results, and it really shows. Tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do in order to stay focused and be working on this. I mean, you're putting in a lot of hours. Are you doing a lot of studying? You are a quick study, so how are you going about this in order to get these results?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I've been working really hard actually. I've been doing something actually. Structuring my practice sessions. So I do a certain amount of time at a time, and I won't let myself do more to avoid frustration. Then I'll take a break, do something else. I'll do a session before work, after work, and that structure, I guess, just helps me make gains instead of get frustrated and plateauing. And I've been reading a lot about racing on all different sites, listening to podcasts. I've just been trying to be a student of the game recently, and it's paying off. But the hours of practice are the biggest thing for sure.
Yeah, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And we're looking forward to seeing you in real life here before too long as racing gets back underway.
Aaron,
Thanks a lot, Tom.
Aaron, this is Mo. I know early in your career you raced open wheel cars and you were quite successful, earning that Team USA scholarship in open wheel cars. And now lately you've switched over to sports cars, particularly here with the MX5 Cup Series. Any big transition issues for you switching from open wheel to closed wheel cars?
To be honest, so far no. I haven't driven very competitive. I haven't raced very competitively in real life yet. The most competitive thing I've done in sports cars so far is the Mazda shootout. Besides that, I've just done some endurance races in a Miata, so I guess time will tell. And I haven't driven in the wet yet either in a sports car, so still have some questions unanswered there.
Well, we wish you all the best. We know you'll get to answer those questions soon, and we wish you all the best. We'll see you next week at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and if you continue your forward progress, you'll be the cat amongst the points pigeons next week.
Well, I hope so. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So we've got Sarah Montgomery who's going to come in next. Now, Sarah, how was virtual racing for the first time for you?
That was interesting. It's been quite the whirlwind of everything today, of like trying to get everything downloaded properly for, the TeamSpeak, all the back end things, to have interviews, fun things like that, and then, practice by myself. And then whenever I started practicing with the large group, my internet started freaking itself out. It was just overwhelmed. It had never done anything that powerful before. So that was interesting because I am definitely not one for technology. I don't know how to use it very well. So I was like calling all my tech friends, calling Brian Lockwood and Glenn McGee, like, please help me, So it's been really interesting, but it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. But, it's very different.
Sarah, this is Mo. Thanks for joining us. You certainly brighten up the place when you join our either real racing or sim racing, and so we're delighted to have you. Hopefully, you'll come back for more.
Of course.
Big difference between sim racing and the real thing?
Oh, for sure.
Have you done much sim racing?
I've done a lot of sim practice, not necessarily racing. So it was funny, you finally get your groove whenever you're practicing. And then when I jumped into the practice where everyone was a part of it, where we had the actual practice before the race started, I would see cars coming up behind me and I'd get so intimidated and like drop a wheel. And like in real life, you're like, oh man, I could have caught that. And then the sim, it's a little bit more intimidating, quite honestly, because I know a lot of these guys have like the 2 and 3 screens set up, whereas I only have the one little, Acer screen, so it's just very different, completely different. It's just something to get used to. And I honestly commend all the people who spend all their time on the sim, because it can be really frustrating sometimes, but it's a great practice tool, as I think Tom was saying earlier, and all of you actually. But it's a lot of fun. I give it that. It's a lot of mental work, though, that's for sure.
Well, we are absolutely delighted to have you join the series, and we hope you'll come back for more. As I said, you absolutely brighten the place up, and best regards to your family. I know Dad had a birthday recently. Happy birthday, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Mo. I really appreciate it.
Johnny?
And so we've got Laguna Seca next week. Now, let me tell you something, Tom Long. Laguna Seca, I said this on the Road to Indy coverage we had here a couple of weeks ago. The corkscrew there is identical to 8 Yao Mings from the NBA stacked on top of each other. That's how tall it is.
Yeah, it is one of the most iconic places we'll go to. The series traveling out to the West Coast next week. WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is one of my personal favorites. Of course, the home to Mazda, the spiritual home for many, many years. It is just so challenging, produces great racing, lots of fantastic braking zone opportunities to overtake, and some of, as you mentioned, the best elevation changes in motorsport.
Certainly is. It's going to be an action-packed event on the 26th. Oh, not on the 26th of May as we head into June. Today's the 26th of May. What am I saying? Snap out of it, Johnny. And it's going to be in a week's time for 40 minutes of action. The final round of the Battery Tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup E-Series, presented by BF Goodrich and Rick Motec Simulation Racing Systems. It'll be broadcasted by Apex Racing TV. Thanks, of course, to Tony Laporta alongside me, Mo Murray, and Tom Long, who joined us for today's coverage. And for myself, Jonathan Simon, we will see you in a week's time around Laguna Seca. The championship going down to the wire between Brian Lockwood and Matt Cresci. Who's going to end out on top?
These days, the events we love will have to wait. Not forever, just for now. But as an essential service, we're open and ready to help. Especially healthcare heroes. We'll do an enhanced cleaning of your car inside and out, and change the oil for free, even if you don't drive a Mazda. It's the least we can do.
We've seen a lot over 150 years. That doesn't mean we've seen it all.